Well, hello, this is Steve from Steve Bar Photography, and today I'm going to talk about Micro Four Thirds shooting. In my hand I have the Olympus EM1X, one of my favorite cameras. One of the things that, or I should say, I guess one of the first things that you will come finding when you do a search on Micro Four Thirds is you'll find a bunch of videos where people compare it to full frame, and they'll say you can't get the bokeh, you can't get the nice creaminess, and the low ISO performance is really horrible, and you just can't do professional work with Micro Four Thirds. Well, if you keep looking, you're going to see a bunch of professional photographers out there that do use Micro Four Thirds and use the Olympus system. Use the Panasonic system. I think it's all what you make it. Sure, you can always go for the biggest and best and cleanest and biggest sensor size, but that doesn't always make the picture. That doesn't make a winning picture. There's so much more that goes into it. And today, with the Olympus cameras that are out, the Panasonic cameras that are out, you get superb, fantastic quality. And there are applications out there like Topaz and DxO that have great denoise capability. And once you use that, I would say that the noise argument pretty much goes out the window. I've processed high ISO images, 8000 ISO, and made them look very, very good. So for all my shooting situations, and I'm typically using faster glass anyhow, and when you use the faster glass and you use the right focal lengths, you can blur out the backgrounds very nice. So one of the things I wanted to talk about for Micro Four Thirds that I find very advantageous is I shoot people. I shoot a lot of like weddings, portraits, parties, events. I'm shooting usually groups of people, big groups of people. And if I'm shooting a full frame and I got a group of people, a lot of times I'd have to close down to f11 to make sure I get everybody in focus. So I'm using fast glass, but I'm closing down, and I found that to be true more often than not. And Micro Four Thirds comes in where I can actually shoot wider open and get those people in focus. I don't need to increase my ISO quite as much, and my strobe power doesn't need to go as high. So in those situations, I find that Micro Four Thirds is a very sweet spot. When I first went to Micro Four Thirds, I had some concerns about some of the bokeh I might be losing, some of the quality I might be losing. But as I kept processing my jobs and images, I actually found that it was a very nice platform to shoot on. Even with Micro Four Thirds, I have made the mistakes of certain images of shooting too wide open on a couple, and then the person in the back is just a little soft or not quite as sharp as I would like. And it made me realize, wow, Micro Four Thirds, it's not like shooting a cell phone. It does have bokeh, and you do have to pay attention to making sure that you close down enough that you get all your people in focus. I'm not doing pictures where I'm only trying to get one eyes and a nose in focus or anything like that, and I'm trying to totally blur out the background to where you can't even recognize back there. Typically, I'm doing a nice scenic setting. I might have a lake, I might have a covered bridge. So I kind of want to keep a little bit of that as maybe soft, but not totally blown out of focus. And when you're doing groups of people, you can't really do that anyhow. So I have found that having the ability to not have to increase my strobe power quite as much and keep my ISO down a little bit and be able to shoot a little bit more open and not have to close so, down to f11, or beyond to make sure I get everyone in focus. That's been very well. So since for my work, I'm doing groups of people, I'm doing portraits, I'm doing, 2, 3, 4, to large groups of people, I can't shoot 1.2 full frame. I'm going to have a bunch of people out of focus and a lot of unhappy clients. So, getting a full frame and having to close down, to pretty much a middle aperture or a small aperture just doesn't really make, much sense to me. So, that's one of the things that you really don't find in a lot of the videos. They just want to compare how much bokeh you get compared to to full frame. But there's actually a strength in Micro Four Thirds, and I have a 0.95 lens. I have a manual focus 0.95. You can find very fast lenses for Micro Four Thirds. So. You get the right lenses, you shoot at the right distances, you can get plenty of bokeh. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing. And I've always said to a lot of people, with Micro Four Thirds, you may have to be a little better photographer, and with full frame, you might be able to be a little bit more sloppy and not get your exposure right on, and make more mistakes and have to do more edits and pull your highlights down and pull your shadows out. But if you are good at exposing and using lights and getting it good in the camera, there's no reason to go to full frame. If you're going to be a bit sloppy and you're going to miss exposures and you're going to have a lot of maybe beginner mistakes, well, maybe you need a little bigger sensor just to kind of compensate for that. But I think the bigger issue is to focus on your shooting skills and getting the image as right as you can in camera, and then your work is much easier. The RAWs that I process, great latitude. You can pull highlights way down, you can pull shadows up. You have a lot of editing capability and a lot of dynamic range, so you still have a lot of flexibility. So anyone that's looking at Micro Four Thirds who may be discouraged by all the videos out there for saying that you have to go crop sensor or larger, and that Micro Four Thirds just isn't adequate for professional work, it isn't true. There's a bunch of videos out there, and you'll find various professional photographers out there that advocate Micro Four Thirds, and I've been very happy with it since I made my switch. So anyway, just wanted to give maybe a little bit of word of encouragement and a little bit of some of the strengths that I found on Micro Four Thirds. All right, well, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.